Uh-oh.
Howdy.
My computer is struggling. We'll see. I might get dropped. You might not be able to be on your thing.
It doesn't require internet.
Good, because mine is struggling. Hey, Simon!
Hello.
Again.
Hello again. I'll be right back.
I'll allow it. I know. Okay. Ow, that's my face. Okay, I love you too. Yes. Okay.
Hey, Jimmy.
Yellow.
Well, legend. You got eye burgers.
We'll just do it that way.
It's kitty time.
Exactly.
Time for kitties.
Hands.
You tell everyone your business. You tell them. What is happening, Jimmer? Why are you a disembodied head right now?
Oh, because I have a technological assistive such that my disarray bookshelves are not on display and such. So I'm in a digital realm of orange tones.
I see.
Yeah.
Well, it was just your head before. Welcome back with your rest of your body.
Hey, thanks. I was trying to check on your cat, is what it was. And so since you called me out, I figured I'd sit down and explain myself.
Legend is
Hello.
very special right now. He wants to hold hands
Right on, right on.
and he has opinions about things
Oh, how does he express them?
by yelling.
Ooh.
Right? Do you yell? Are you loud? He makes the best face. It is the
So he's
derpiest. This is my critical sticker last year, is this dumb face.
Nice.
Nice, nice.
Your mouth is open. Yeah, did you know?
You just like that all the time?
A lot. Like, he like, I rub his belly, he's just like, I don't know what's happening now. I forgot what I was saying. That's, yeah.
To be fair, he's a cat. He's got a license for that. Yeah, and Akshay has also got a digital background on his. Nice
It's
to
just
see
blurry.
that. I'm not alone here. Thank you for that, Akshay. With the minor, with the blur happening.
It's just a blur, not digital background.
It is, though, a filter of sorts.
Well, actually.
And then Feynman. In what universe he sits, one cannot say.
And Magic has hand
Wasteland.
hours.
Wasteland.
It's from No Man's Sky.
No, these are my digits.
Good.
Digital.
Ah, very good. Nice. Oh, you got Clinton.
That was really good. All right. We have a quorum. I need to double check my math. 2/3 of 11 is 8. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have magic to do my math. Don't ask me.
Was 2/3 of 10 8? 2/3. Why was 2/3?
Yeah, because 3 times 4, well, it's a quarter.
Yeah, it's 8.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rounded up to 8.
I used to be very good at dividing things by 7.
It was 7 before, right?
Because we
I
had 10
swear it was
people.
7 before.
We had 10
There was
people.
there was only 10 of us. There was only
Yeah.
10 of us before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Round up 7. So now we need 8.
Right?
All right.
You're gonna fall.
Yay.
Reboot doesn't have his digital background for the first time in I don't know how long. Weird.
You are a breath of fresh air in so many ways.
What is it?
My camera is currently working and not doing anything weird.
Right?
And it's
Why
not
would you
the
say that out
nonsense's
loud?
camera that was zooming
Disappointing,
in on
I
my
have to
face.
say.
I like it. I like what you've done with the background and your face and the hair and the fact that
Always the
you've got
hair.
what?
I've always got to have the hair.
Well, it's either that or be bald, and I mean, I've
We
seen
got a
people pull that
poster.
off as well. I
We-
mean, it's not
We have
disallowed.
we have a quorum and a packed agenda. Like,
Yeah.
we should go.
Let's do
We
it.
should-
Let's do
All right.
board meeting.
Cool. Let's start with liaisons. DPW. I don't believe there is DPW. Nope. Stewardship. It doesn't exist right now. Rangers. Do we have a tuck? Do we have anyone else who attends the Ranger Council meetings? No. Okay. Critical. Reboot.
Hello. Critical is humming along. We have most departments filled except for, I think it's 3, and we have no departments empty, which is great. We have a number of mentors and apprentices, which is equally great. DPW has been proactively surveying the site to estimate the labor and time and money costs of our proposed parking expansion. I could talk about that now, or I could talk about that in a separate segment. Up to you.
I think either of those is okay. I've got a link to the DPW budget in the new items section, just a budget spreadsheet, which I think kind of paints the overall picture, but you can certainly talk about it. Let's hold that for new business because I think that'll be lengthy.
Sure. But yeah, things are humming along. Everything seems to be on track, and we're having a real nice time over in Discord.
Yay. All right. And we don't have C compression producers currently, so we'll talk about,
Actually, has a question.
His hand up.
I'm sorry, Akshay, go.
Yeah. Hey, Reboot, is this right? I just had a conversation with the current ambassador leads who are very green and don't feel like they've been set up for success. Should I take that like offline with you in terms of like, how can we, or is this the right forum to chat about it?
This is probably not the right forum to chat about it, but setting ambassadors up for success involves bringing on mentors like yourself, which we have done, and beginning to sort of coach them in the coming month or so prior to the leads retreat. So they are green, and I don't feel any kind of stress about it, and I feel that we are intending to make sure they do feel set up for success when the time comes.
I will take that offline with you.
Wow. Anything? I was muted. Anything else on critical? Okay. No C
Just we're having a Bleeds retreat the weekend of May 2nd.
All right. Minutes from last month, we approved February at the board onboarding on March 15th. Yay. But we do have an update that we want to read in today on officers and committee chairs. So at the onboarding meeting last Saturday, we elected Feynman as president, Megaphone as vice president, Giles as treasurer, Magic as deputy treasurer, Magic as secretary, Nonsense as deputy secretary. We have 4 tech directors now: Magic, Nonsense, Reboot, and Feynman. For committees, we've got the tech committee chairs are Magic and Feynman. The comms committee chairs are Megaphone and Nonsense. The acculturation committee co-chairs are Jimmer and Marley. Conduct committee, Marley as a community chair. Conduct committee chaired by Nonsense, Grants, Giles and Jimmer. Events, Betstar and Tuck. Fundraising,
Unconfirmed, right?
right. We haven't asked Tuck, but assuming they want to continue.
Tuck is trying to get into the meeting currently and is
Oh,
having some
Can
technical
confirm.
difficulties.
Spoke to him yesterday. He was happy to be included.
Sweet. Okay.
Yay.
Fundraising Akshay and the alumni committee Jimmer. Hey board, did I get anything wrong there? I'm pretty sure that was all correct. I tried to take thorough notes, but anything could happen. All right. Cool. New business. Bestar, do you want to go with hopefully an easy one first? The asset manager search update.
Sure. So Feynman as a board representative, myself as the events committee representative, and Dookie as a DPW representative interviewed all responsive candidates for the asset manager role, which I believe there's 4. There were 6 applicants, 4 responded. I recused myself on Clinton's interview since he is my partner. And again, Feynman, I don't know if you want to, are you aligned with what Dookie and I talked about on the email?
I am aligned with what you and Dookie talked about. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So we are in agreement that we have 2 rockstar candidates. We had 3 rockstar candidates, but 2 that we are leaning towards, Caleb and Princess Tater Tot. The difference between these 2 candidates is really what we want this role to be. And I think Tater Tot, for the role that we had originally envisioned, meets it perfectly. She has done inventory. She does inventory in her current job. She has actually written an inventory program that works for her current job at the PacSci Science Center. Definitely qualified and interested, and also a relatively new member of the community. So extra exciting. She's been a Critical Once and she's going again this year. So it'd be nice to kind of welcome her to the fold. Caleb, obviously, extraordinarily experienced, very familiar with the containers and everything and the way that things go in and come out, has a kind of a broader vision for what this role could be. A lot more sort of like, we're going to do inventory, we're going to get it all set up. Yes. And there's like 3 or 4 other things that I would like to do with this role, all of which INW needs. But it would definitely mean paying somebody more. I'm being super honest about it. Like, I wouldn't want to hire her without compensating her for all the work that she would like to be doing. So I think that was sort of where we got to. I mean, Feynman, do you have anything to add on that?
No, I think that's exactly right. There is the broad question of how do we want to think about compensation for this position. I think that there's a little bit of room for us to negotiate specifically with candidates, but where we as a board left off this conversation was that I think previously we paid the position $100 a month, every month, as an independent contract position that had decent amounts of work to do in some months and very little work to do in a small handful of other months. My position is that $100 a month is a little too low, especially given that we're going to be clearing a little bit of a backlog of work that we've teed up for the role by virtue of being asset managerless for a couple of years. We can talk about whether that changes compensation up front and then that tapers to steady state, or some other approach. I think there are lots of possible approaches here. Yeah, and the role previously was, it was kind of designed to be the continuity and maintenance layer, right? Recognizing that event staff does an awful lot of their own asset slinging when it comes to inventorying bins and so on. Like, the idea here isn't necessarily hire someone to do all of that, right? But it's sort of the recognition that we've got containers that mold if we take our eyes off the dehumidification system and it fails. And we've got inventories to be made and like high-level inventories to be made and maintained of asset tagged assets, for example, which I think is not a thing we have ever been good at if anybody in the room knows better than that, correct me, but I think so. That's all I've got to add, Beth, if you want to.
Yeah. So I think my thoughts on it are there is going to be a ton of work in the next 6 to 9 months because Critical is ramping up. And so people are going to be in and out of those containers, taking things in and out of them. And I don't know that there's going to be time for an asset manager to get a inventory up and running before that happens. But it would be nice for them to be working alongside the Critical team so that as things are coming in and out of that container, they're involved, right? At least for exposure. Now, of course, Caleb already knows where whatever, pretty much what's in there and what's going in and out, but Princess Tater Tot would not. And I too I would like to think about the idea of even making this an hourly sort of thing where we decide an hourly rate and we maybe put a cap on how many hours a month this role can be. Like, I don't want someone working 75 hours and then all of a sudden it's becoming but because it's going to be a huge amount of work in the next 6 to 9 months, and then maybe way less as things get maintained, it's hard to say what a monthly amount would make sense without screwing this person out of a lot of money in the beginning. Giles?
I saw Jimmer's real hand up before Giles' virtual hand up.
Go for it.
Hey, thanks. My curiosity is around the documentation of their actions when they are doing the work itself. So I appreciate the flexibility that's available within the hourly structure, and sometimes it hurts to work 10 hours for $100 when you might have otherwise worked 2 hours for $100. So considering that adjustment makes sense in my head. In relation to that, there's often a methodology of recording actions to the effect of basically letting us know postscript what actually got done in that time. That would be a valuable record for multiple reasons. So
Yeah, and we did talk about that in interviews, the idea that we would really like, and Caleb actually brought this up in her interview, is that part of this role is documenting what this person is doing. And she said, even if it's not her, she's going to be interacting with them a lot, as is DPW. And so having a good documentation for the board about, hey, I was up here, I did 3 hours of work, here's what got accomplished. I do think that is going to be an important part of whoever does this job, is documenting what they've done and how much time it took. Giles?
So I was just looking through the budget that we passed, trying to kind of locate this kind of item, and I'm not particularly finding things. And that's not to say we shouldn't spend money on this, but once we know what we're thinking about here, let's circle back on the budget and get that in a document.
Okay. Thank you. So yeah, I think Feynman and I are kind of in the same place of like, it would be interesting to hear from the rest of you if you have input on the vision of like, this role can be what it was, which is get an inventory set up, maintain an inventory, work with event production staff to make sure things are going in and out of the containers, and full stop, right? That can be this role. There is potential for it to be more, and Caleb has a pretty good layout of what that would look like. And I have a lot of faith in her ability to understand what's needed and what could be happening. But I would like some input if anybody has any opinions about that. Like, do we feel like it's within our budget and a reasonable thing to have this be a more broad role?
Do we have a sense of what the full extent of the broad role would be?
Caleb sent us a thing. And of
Yeah,
course, it's on the other freaking computer. Hold on, let me see if I can. Do you have that easily, Feynman?
And more than like the specific details, I mean, I'm interested in that as well, but also I'm curious about like the overall hours that we would be buying into for that.
I don't think we have necessarily how many hours it would be, but if I know Caleb and I've worked with her a bunch, her answer would be, how many hours are you going to give me? I'll make it work. Right? Like, that's up to us to kind of say, like, these are sort of our long-term goals, and we don't want you doing more than 10 hours a week of work. And, she would adjust to that.
It's not infinitely adjustable though, right? There's like a minimum number of hours that we can give her to accomplish the things that we want to accomplish on a list, right?
Yeah, although I think again, none of this is like, we haven't had an asset manager for a long time. So there's not really a timeline, like there's not a deadline on this, right? So yeah, if we say we only want you to do this many hours a month, she can do that. That means it takes longer to get things back up and running. Sort of my idea on it is like, maybe we don't have limitation the first like 2 months after critical, and whoever it is goes in and goes hard and gets an inventory set up, goes through everything. And so we take the kind of the training wheels off the beginning, but then we put them on after that inventory is established.
Can I add?
Mhm.
I'm thinking that it seems clear that the vision and the scope of this job are not yet defined particularly well.
Well, I think they were.
Yeah.
But
So
then
to
like,
that effect, right. So you said Tater Tot hit a good solid ball there, and then Caleb brought you this Extendo Vision. It sounds like Extendo Vision is cool and all, but not within previously established scope. And
well, I think that's
you're
like kind
aiming
of,
to be flexible, I think. What's that?
that's sort of the question, right? Is
Mhm.
do we want to keep the original scope? I don't think that's a bad choice.
Mhm.
But the things that Caleb is talking about are going to have to get done. Maybe
Mhm.
they get done this time, maybe, but they are things that are going to have to get done. And so I think both Feynman and I are sort of like, I could see it either way.
Yes. Could we do now? Here's an either way that we could define. Go with A, the one that you labeled as definable, and then adjunct the second paragraph. Make the other stuff that's the add-on particularly separate.
Feynman, do you have that list? Because I can like go off screen and go on my other computer and send it to myself, but
Yep.
I didn't think to do that.
You're talking about the Caleb's list or the role description?
Caleb's list. I can put the roll up if people want that, but I think we kind of went over what our basic original idea was.
Let me see.
Are you looking to parlay towards hiring Caleb to pull off the Extendo version?
That's what we don't know. I think Feynman and I both feel the same way. Is like, I can see this going either way, which is why we haven't come to the board with this is what we want to do.
Okay, can I ask a question that helps feed this? Do you have a timeline within which you feel urgency to hire this person structurally?
Yes.
When is that?
I would like to get this hire done before the end of March, no later than the end of April, because things are starting to things have been sitting, like Caleb and Dookie and a couple other DPW people have been doing this job for free, and I'm effing done with that.
Yeah.
We have a budget for it. I want to pay somebody for it.
Okay.
And also, not getting paid for it means you're not necessarily doing it quite as much as maybe should be done. And so I want somebody that has that as their responsibility soon.
Cool.
Plus, critical is coming. And if we can have this person up and running by the time critical's getting into the containers, it's better for everybody.
Mhm.
And also, we've been waiting too long. I'm honestly like personally annoyed that it's taken this long to get somebody hired.
Mhm.
Can I there's other people with their hands up, Gimmer. Can I move
please.
on or do you have another question? Okay, Chuck.
Yeah. So when you say hire, are we talking about as an employee, or will this be a contract job?
Contract for sure. I actually, when we pivoted to the question about can we do this right and do it hourly, some question marks went up in my head for sure. I think one of the well, I mean, I know that you can have hourly contractors. That's not necessarily a contradiction. But I know that this was sort of designed in the past to be a requirements, and here's the monthly rate. Figure it out and go forth.
We also haven't had a ton of success with our past asset managers. So doing what we've always done may not be the right choice.
Yeah, I don't see any issues with having it being a contract position. I would prefer that for a lot of reasons. And I think as long as you structure it such that, the person that's hired has a lot of control over their hours, sort of most of the like decisional aspects of like how they go about their work.
Yep.
But we're just kind of directing like the ultimate job that needs to get done and doing, you know, quality control and then verifying that the hours and paying them. I think that that would be fine as a contract job. So I don't see any issues there.
Thanks, Tuck.
I can't find my link to K-Love's thing.
Okay, I think I still have it up. Oh no, maybe I don't. My computer was at. Dang it! I should have saved it and I didn't. That is my
Let
bad. My
me-
bad.
I'll try one more thing, but I am not sure I have it.
Magic, you had your hand up. Want to go ahead while we wait?
Yeah, you can say a little pile up of things on hourly or contract or all that. I would agree with everyone on just having a scope. I think also that leads to the question of like who is managing this person. I think not really anyone, but if we have just the scope and expectations defined, then we can know if they're not being met. Probably, I don't know. But do you have in mind someone who is like actively checking on that the job is getting done?
So that's a super good question. And I think, oops, hang on. I don't know that I thought about that specifically. I think it would probably make sense for the board to be the person overseeing that. But do we have a specific person on the board picked out for that job? No. Would I be willing to be that person? Yeah. I mean, it may be more appropriate for it to be Reboot or somebody else who's got more DPW / critical ties, because they're going to have a little bit more like, this is what we need right now. But if
Eyes on the
it
ball.
needs to be
Mhm.
a warm body, that can be me.
I
Tuck.
second
Doesn't have
Reboot.
So I mean, I think a lot of the sort of
If you're talking, I can't hear you.
oh, interesting.
can.
Can you
I can.
I can hear Tuck.
Yeah, same here.
Hmm.
We've seen this before.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was in a
Jitsi.
different thing.
Yeah, shouldn't be
Try
happening here.
again.
Can you hear me now? Can anyone hear me now?
Yes.
I can hear you.
Yes.
That star is Tuck the only person you cannot hear?
Beth Star has disappeared.
You just dropped
Okay.
off to join again.
Tuck, go ahead and say what you want.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I remember what I was going to say.
Oh, no.
But now I remember. So in terms of the performance management side of things, a lot of it could be handled with documentation, right? Like you document that the work was done, you know, take a picture of the storage unit, send a picture to the board. That is one option. So we can try to minimize the amount of like in-person board time that's necessary to verify performance. Like I don't think K-Love's going to try to pull a fast one on us, so I'm not that worried as much as there's some level of documentation that shows the person verified that the work was done, the board saw it was done and said, yep, good job.
Makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Who else? Okay, that was the last hand. So well, if Beth is back and Beth Star can hear us.
Hi, that was weird.
Hello.
I'm back now. Sorry. What did I miss?
Tuck had a great suggestion for a way we can make supervision, like just send us pictures and notes, and we'll keep an eye on it out of the corner of our eye, and we'll mostly be okay. So that's most of what you missed. We should probably get this wrapped up and move on.
Would we gonna hire somebody today or no?
It would be great if we came out of today with a position on our intent, whether we want the
Original design,
original scope or the deluxe scope.
and then how
Feels
much we're going to pay.
decidable to me. Magic hand.
Let me phrase this in my head really quick. I move to empower Beth Star to hire the appropriate candidate within the month.
Second. All in
Point
Jimmer.
of curiosity, what does that mean for the budget?
Yeah, I think we should nail down either an hourly rate well, probably both a rate and a maximum budget, or at least a max budget.
Maybe maximum monthly and maximum annual or something.
So one thing I should add to here is I was looking through the budget I do see that we added 4,500 in professional fees expected for this year. Unfortunately, our budget doesn't label what particular extra fees we thought that was. But in over and above our producer and kind of pieces in the admin slot, we said that we were going to pay 4,500 more in fees. So
Does
it's
that include,
summary of
does
what
it-
that might have been the asset manager position.
like, we have contracts with other people though, right? We have a bookkeeper and an attorney. Are those separate on the budget?
Those are separate.
Those are-
Yeah,
those are
separate.
Yeah.
That's good.
So short of not knowing really what that's for, the budget does have at least 4,500 room for extra professional fees this year.
I think it was the administrative assistant, kind of
That's possible.
The executive director light. Well,
Right.
I mean, admin, just plain old admin was kind of what we were after.
Okay, so we may not have accounted for the asset manager role.
Magic.
I thought this role was budgeted in 2024. Did we look back on our 2024 budget and see what that said?
I can go look back, but this budget is the 2024 one with inflation added. So in theory, anything that should have been on 2024 would be here.
Yeah, but the labels were different, right? Because we used a different system. So that way, at least we could have a guideline for what we thought we were going to pay before.
Yeah. I can take an action to Splunk. I won't be able to real time it right now.
Can you not find the file? Is it not like to the left?
Waylon.
It is not to the left of this spreadsheet. Let me go look, but keep talking. I'll be looking.
A curiosity for you, Beth. Would doubling the 100, arriving at 200 per month, arriving at approximately 50% of this other column that we've just found in the budget, suffice for what you might perceive as a reasonable budget moving forward? Something along the lines of 2,400 a month or a year, excuse me.
I don't think so. If we were just asking this person to step up and maintain what we already had established as a really well done inventory, I think that would be fair. But that's not what we're asking. We're asking them to come in and build an inventory of something that really, for all intents and purposes, has very little structure right now. Like there's stuff in Kate's head, there's stuff in Dookie's head, there's stuff in Critical Productions head, but we need a system that everybody can access.
Yeah, but I'm just curious about the time requirements you think are necessary for that, considering the fact that like each space that is there, if, as you described, we wouldn't be able to get a complete accounting for things before Critical. Really, it's during the closing of Critical, when all the buckets are shut, that we get the clearest picture, right? And each team could be individually responsible for presenting a list or of contents. Like that would be a really great way to sort of expand.
I mean,
the work.
Yeah, but here's the thing: like those, I'm not so worried about what's inside the bins because this person doesn't necessarily have to worry about what's inside the spacement bin. They have to know there's 2 spacement bins, right? But there's a lot of DPW assets and INW assets that aren't in bins, right? So it's not so much about what's being tracked by Critical that I'm worried about. It's what's being tracked by DPW. And I mean, like I was there at the end of Critical last year. We did a ton of cleaning out. Like we threw away a bunch of stuff, but there is not an official list of what's in those bins, as far as I know, outside of DPW and some people's heads. I see hands up. Hold on.
Magic, then Reboot, then Feynman.
I would amend my motion to suggest Beth Stark can hire the appropriate candidate, scoped to $4,500 annually budgeted, but maybe if we need more time, then we can raise the topic at the next board meeting.
I am comfortable with the idea of we've got $4,500 and we make it work with whichever role we choose. I mean, does that sound reasonable to me? A reasonable amount of money for the thing we are trying to get done.
I second the amendment.
I'm seeing hands up.
We still have Josh's hand up, or Reboot's hand up. Do we want to do we're in the debate part, so go for it.
Okay, just briefly, if you want help from the critical team, the best time would be at the Leeds retreat, but the best way to do that would be to have someone who's in charge of the inventory driving the process. And
So
I would also be happy to supervise this person should we hire them.
what I'm hearing from you is that you're, from Critical's perspective, having this person up and running weeks before the Leeds retreat would be great. Okay. That is what I understood. So great. If that's the budget we have, Feynman and I can circle back and decide which person we choose and get them hired up and be done with it. Like I am good with that as long as nobody has any protests about that much money and sort of the idea that the scope on this can go to two different directions.
Let's vote on the amendment real quick. All in favor? Actually, let's attempt unanimous consent without objection on the amendment, and then we'll vote on the primary motion. Okay, so let's move on to a vote on the amended motion, which is Magic moves to empower Beth Star to hire the appropriate candidate by the end of the month with a budget, an annual budget for the role capped at $4,500.
Amendment to the budget.
What?
Yep. Can we tack in there the volunteering of our man Josh to be a supervisory role for that, such that it would knock out the email us a photograph method?
I think there should be both. Reboot can be
I'm
the
down
person.
with both,
We should all
but I
have
would like
the-
a person on that. I think a person who's thoughtfully attending to that email of photographs, that would be valuable.
I'm not sure we need a resolution for that. To me, that feels
Okay.
very procedural and just
Okay.
something
I think we would only need to make an amendment if we're allocating additional budget for it.
Snazzy. I remove my concern.
All right. All in favor of the amended motion that I just read, say aye.
All right.
Bye.
All opposed, say nay. The ayes have it.
Thanks, friends. Oh my God, we're so close to landing this plane. I'm very excited. I'm very personal.
Yo, congrats on that. That's happy.
All right. Let's do, Lord, another big topic, sea compression 2025. Magic, our tradition is that we just call it. We just say the motion carried or something like that. If anybody, education, especially for the new board members, if anybody is unhappy with what I believe I heard, any one of you has the right to immediately, in response to me saying something like the ayes have it, to request a counted vote, and then we'll do it by show of hands. But in the vast majority of cases, we hear question mark, ayes, and like 0 or 1 nays, and it's pretty clear.
Just for the minutes. That sounds good.
Understood. Totally understood. Sea compression. Let's go. Beth Star, this is probably you again. And let's, in all seriousness, like we can talk in circles forever on this. Let's try to get to an outcome.
Okay, I will try to do like a 2-minute elevator pitch on where we are sort of kind of at about sea compression. And again, we talked about this at the onboarding a little, so I don't think anyone's going to be shocked. Our challenge with sea compression is that it did not go great this year. And I think Reboot was really helpful in sort of pointing out, like, we haven't really shit the bed on sea compression until this year. It was not good. It did not go well. We all kind of know why. But we are, because it didn't go well, reconsidering what sea compression is and what sea compression can be and what sea compression is going to be. We have a producer application out right now. As of today, we have no applicants. And we're sort of run the gamut on, do we want to just do a tiny party? Do we want to still try to blow it out? Do we want to do, so we have a couple issues. A, we don't have a producer currently, which means we don't have anybody started on getting production going. We are heavily leaning toward letting Seattle Center go, which means we probably don't have a site either. So the two big things we need for an event, we don't have. And it's sort of, the events committee talked about this a lot and in circles and had very little to bring forward to the board, except that we want to keep, oh my God, Legend, I'm so sorry. That we wanted to keep the C compression production application open, producer application open, but have figure out a date to close it so that we know when we are done trying to find a producer. And then Marley had done a motion on it, and I can find you the exact motion. Magic, go ahead.
Curious if you have a sense of how much time a producer would need before the event.
Depends on the event, which is part of we're having sort of a chicken and egg problem here, right? Like, how much time does a producer need to do an event? Well, what kind of event are we doing? Well, that kind of depends on which producer we get, et cetera, et cetera. If we were doing a Seattle Center level event again this year, we are already probably a month to 2 months behind. Reboot.
I don't think the deadline has passed today, but I think probably next board meeting.
I'm going to defer to the actual producer in the room about that. So I think the thing that I am presenting to you all, and the thing we have to kind of figure out probably is, are we doing C compression this year? And if we are, we need to do something very quickly about that. Either hire a producer or pick a site or both. Magic.
How, under your events committee co-chair hat, how would you think the events committee would respond to the board asking the events committee to either have a go or no go decision by the next board meeting? Or just that, like.
Magic, I tried so hard, friend. I tried so hard to get somebody to like stand up and say, even make a motion so that we could vote. I think everyone is feeling how the board is feeling, which is we don't know the answer to that. So I can try again, but I don't have a lot of faith that we're going to get a lot of traction on it because nobody is quite certain about what the right thing is.
More bluntly, would it be well received for the board to say, please have a decision by this date, or no C compression?
I think it's sort of going the other direction. The events committee is sort of looking at the board like, we can do whatever you guys want to do, but we need to know what you want to do. At least, again, that is my words, but that is sort of the impression I got from the conversations that we had. Nobody was willing to say, like, it's not that we can't decide. It's not like we're arguing with each other, right? It's just that nobody has quite enough strength of heart about what they think should be happening. Oh, we got a lot of hands up. I'm so sorry, friends. Tuck.
Yeah. So if I recall the conversation from the last events committee meeting correctly, there was some concern about like, okay, we haven't gotten much public feedback, and the public might react poorly if we were to make a strong decision without getting some feedback first. So I do think that is a legitimate concern. However, beyond that, I do see a lot of problems with the way that we've kind of historically been approaching the event and sort of even the situation that we currently find ourselves in. I am very much in favor of taking some time off from C compression. I think it would be good to maybe not have it and have everybody think about, okay, well, do we really miss it? Do we miss it bad enough to actually show up and do the stuff that's necessary to make it happen? Because that seems to be a big problem for us. So, I mean, if we're looking for somebody to make the motion, I would be happy to move that if the events committee hasn't hired a producer as of, their next meeting or the end of their next meeting, that we would decide not to have C compression this year.
So the board hires. The events committee advises, the board hires, but yes.
Well, we set time aside for interviews. I'm sorry. So if they don't recommend a producer to the board by the end of the next events committee meeting, that we will not have a C compression 2025. So that would be my motion.
Should we do the debate by having everyone's hands that are up, say, talking before we start voting on that? Is it other people? You want to hold it?
Any second?
That's, I think, next term, right? Next month. He's proposing a possible next month, not right now.
No, but this is still, we have to do it. It's a motion. We still have to vote.
Yeah,
on it.
I think we're.
It is a
we're-
motion. I'm okay with letting other people get their say in before we debate and vote on the motion.
Reboot, you were next.
Okay. So my perspective is C compression has been doing great except for last year. And in my perspective is the reason it didn't go well last year is because the timeline got screwed really, really harsh. And that matters a lot. And so tracing it back to root causes, it was all about the timeline, right? So I am aligned with the idea of setting a drop dead date, and I'm aligned with the idea of having it be next board meeting. In terms of what exactly C compression is or where it should be, I propose we let the producer have strong ideas about that and drive that process, assuming someone applies. And if they don't, then I think we pick a date to just call it and say maybe next year.
Feynman.
That to expand on, to sort of synthesize maybe and expand on both what Tuck and Reboot said, I'm thinking along the lines of, sure, we can let another month go by with the process continuing to run. We can even do our very best to try to land a producer candidate. Maybe one final comms blitz. I don't know. But failing that, I think it would be neat for us to pivot our energy to putting together a production council for C compression that can be people either thinking that they're maybe wanting to be the producer or maybe not wanting to be the producer. But that production council can take the time to answer the question with community input of what do we want C compression to be, and then move right into sort of putting some forethought into and who wants to do it, right? Like I think that that process, sort of to Reboot's point, I think there's kind of, it feeds what is the event, feeds who wants to do it, feeds what is the event. And this gives us an opportunity to maybe oil that machine.
Jimmer.
I thought nonsense was up before me. That's okay. Yeah, I like the idea of the drop dead date, considering next month. And the production council for 26 would be a genius institutional move if we do nix it for 25. You know what I'm reminded of is when we had an unburn in Shanghai one time. It was right after COVID happened. We couldn't get the contracts for our burn. You know, we did the dragon burn, but there was a little renegade. We could still, if we didn't do a C compression, there'd be a piece of calendar that somebody else could still play with on the fly, and it might be a good sort of energy release, but we wouldn't need to own it. So I just want to put it out there that I am part of the team that says, you know, if we see it happen by next events committee, we can celebrate that. But I you know, I concur with the consensus otherwise.
Nonsense.
I just want to add two things. Like, I agree with Reboot that the compressed timeline last year was an extreme situation for producers, but I also want to highlight that getting us producer for C compression has been hard for multiple years. One of the reasons the timeline was so compressed last year is because there was a candidate that I think was reluctantly chosen as one of the only options, and then they ghosted us, right? So
The only option.
the only option, right?
But I wouldn't say that he was reluctantly chosen. He had chops. Like I was there for that, right? Like I wasn't reluctantly chosen, like had history, had done C compression before, has big time production experience.
Yeah, and with respect to mental health, perhaps the ghosting was not intentional.
So yeah, I mean, there are other people who had the opinion that it wasn't a good choice, but I hear what you're saying, that there was reason to think he could be good. That's fine. I still think that one producer applicant, and in the past I've understood that there was not a lot of applicants either. Like it is a challenging problem that we're continuing to face that I think we should consider. Also, I'm of the opinion that we could, like, I think I'm kind of reading between the lines on what Feynman said, which is we could wait, we could give them another month, or we could just vote that we're going to not do C compression this year. And it sounds like the events committee doesn't have a strong opinion. They're looking to us for leadership. And if we have a strong feeling one way or another, we could make that decision today and just say, hey, like, we've given this a good try. We've communicated it out publicly. People haven't responded. We don't have any applicants. And we're just going to make the decision today that we should cancel C compression this year and move to this training committee, this council where people gather feedback and we train up a producer or get people involved for next year.
Akshay.
Just dovetailing with that, what more data are we looking for another month to go by and make a decision? Can't we just make that decision now that we're not doing it this year? And if something changes, a producer comes up, then we bring it back in. In the meantime, let's spare the events committee a lot of work from trying to, ring a towel that has been wrung. So why aren't we making that decision today?
I think because we just got the C compression application up, producer application up, it's only been up since the beginning of the month. So like, it's not, I wouldn't say we've given it a fair shot yet. I would like to give it a little time. Do I think we're going to get a ton of applicants? No, I don't, but I would like to see if we get any. And we haven't really, it only came out like there's been one announcement, right? We haven't really been promoting it that much. If we're going to, I would like to keep it up a little longer and maybe give it a little bit harder push, right? People aren't necessarily like, because we've lost the amount of like attention on Facebook, I think people aren't necessarily seeing things as much as they were before. So we're going to have to be a little louder. And so I would like to try a little bit more before I give up. Because maybe it's unrealistic, but I do have a little hope that, because I know there's at least one person that's interested. That's the part of it too. Magic.
Yeah, first, second, what Nonsense said about hoping for a competitive process, not just a single applicant. So it can be that the events committee recommends no candidates if they're not like certain that there will be a good candidate. And I agree that we should like let people engage with the process for another month. And that might especially be motivated by us communicating that there's a deadline and there won't be a C compression if we don't choose someone by this date. And then the people who are on the fence can know that they have to make a decision before then, and we'll like move to engage with the process.
Thanks, Magic. I like that. That is very well stated. Megaphone.
There is no current deadline, and I think that we need to announce one ASAP and add it to the application. We failed with that a little bit last year as well, but we do need to, people like to wait until there is a deadline. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is, and so we should definitely update that soon, and I'd love to work with you on getting some comms out about it.
So the next events committee is April 9th. The next board meeting is April 16th. We can say the deadline is April 8th, which then we have that gives the events committee time to theoretically review candidates and interview. And yeah, I would let's do a comms events committee collab offline and figure out how to announce that the deadline is this. And also, hey, motherfuckers, guess what? Not only is there a deadline, but this is actually the go or don't go for decompression. So if you're thinking about it, this is your moment. Okay, that was everybody's hand up, and we have a motion on the floor, I believe. Did you want to do anything else with your proposal, Feynman, or do you want to just go with Tuck's motion?
Well, I don't remember if we got a second on Tuck's motion, in which case we'll resolve that. But
Can we hear it again?
I would be happy to formalize my proposal as a motion if we get to that.
Okay. Tuck, do you want to restate your motion if you'd be so kind?
Yes. So the motion is that the board will communicate a deadline to the events committee that if they have not recommended a producer for 2025 C compression to the board by the end of their next events committee meeting, we will not have a C compression 2025 and will instead look at the future.
And I move to amend to add that we after that, like failing that recommendation and approval by the board, then we will spin up a production council for sea compression to define the event for 2026 and also begin recruiting and training.
I second the amendment. Well, we have to, the amendment has to be,
We need to discuss and vote on the amendment.
Yeah.
Then
So
go back to the original question. Yeah.
Yep. So I guess real quick, any discussion or debate on the amendment?
I'm just curious, who owns that council construction? Is it the events committee or?
good question.
Sorry,
Can
what
you
was the
repeat
question?
Who would be the ones in charge of that council? Would it be the events committee spinning it up, or would it be the board?
Maybe we just wait for people to complain about no sea compression and we put them in charge.
Yeah, I don't feel like we have to resolve that.
It seems like it's
By
gonna be a
construction, it falls to the
natural
board,
project
but
anyway.
we can delegate that to the events committee in the future. Like there's
Yeah.
no, that is a deferrable question in my mind.
You can
Agreed.
try. Just
I
kidding.
know. At the same time, this sounds like the extendo version of critical production year round that Josh has been talking about. So it sounds like it kind of matches the plan. So it might naturally, organically grow in from that tendril space as well.
Totally agree. And that's part of, it's parallel construction on purpose.
I agree too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Second the amendment. Second the amendment.
All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
I
All opposed, say nay. All right, which brings us back to the amended motion. We'll have the board communicate a deadline to the event committee that if they've not recommended a producer by the end of their next committee meeting, there will be no sea compression 2025. And if it comes to that, we'll spin up a production council for sea compression for 2026. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Aye.
Right, that carried.
I was an aye for the record.
Great.
Okay, can we talk about something that's not on my plate? That'd be cool.
Yep, we totally can. I was just quickly scanning the list to see if there was something else from your plate that I could troll you with, but I think you're out of work. All right, let's do DPW budget. So I sent a link to this spreadsheet, and some of us have talked about this already. Y'all should click through the link in the agenda. I'll tee this up, and then I think Reboot knows a whole lot more about this, and I'll let him take it from there. So because this is designed to be a growth year for Critical, we know that we're going to be spending a lot more money on DPW and infrastructure this year than usual. And so I think that we need to, as a board, be informed about what that looks like. I think it's totally reasonable for us to talk about this in the context of sort of, investing in our future. This may or may not, like some of these investments may or may not break even this year. We obviously don't want to make stupid investments. So the budget is somewhere between 0 and infinity. The responsible budget is somewhere between 0 and infinity. It's not 0 and it's not infinity. If you look at this spreadsheet, there's the first line, which we've talked about as a board a little bit in Slack, for maybe we should buy an excavator. I don't want to speak for all of you, and we'll have more time to talk about this, but we certainly did not reach an enthusiastic consensus that INW wants to own an excavator. And so you can look at that line, that $50,000 line, and think either, yeah, that sounds like a great idea, or you can think, I'm going to ignore that for right now. We'll continue going down the path of renting excavators like we have. But if you total up the remaining lines in the budget, that gets us to exactly $14,529. That's going to be wrong, but I think that's kind of an interesting order of magnitude to carry around in your head. And because we subtracted out that excavator purchase, there's going to be some excavator rentals that come back as a result. So we're kind of talking, opening bid is we're kind of talking about a $20,000 a year for infrastructure investments. And Jimmer, I noticed you've got your hand up, and then I want to stop yammering and hand the floor to Reboot.
Yeah, with a real quick glance at it, I'm seeing some sort of questionable numbers, not like intentional, but perhaps typographical, to the effect that we have things like two power cables at $380 each. Are those real numbers that power
Sounds
cables
right.
cost 300?
Yeah, that
Okay.
does sound
100
right.
foot 6-gauge wires. Yeah.
And you did catch an
Okay.
important mistake that I made. I gave you the total for the per unit price column, not the total for the total column. So the total for the total column without an excavator, just to reset everybody's expectations, is $22,421.
Okay, so
add in an
we're just gonna buy one DPW shirt and it costs $700?
No,
Right. So that was also coming out as the thing, and since those, I just like one is the top of a column, one is the bottom of a column. I didn't, as I say, it was a cursory glance, but a $700 T-shirt does seem anomalous, perhaps typographical.
and one might infer that that's a box of t-shirts that costs $700, and not
If
an
one
t-shirt
talks
that
about
costs
boxes, one can see the word box with the
It's-
word box
it's
written. I
plural.
don't.
It's plural, Jimmer.
Okay, so I don't see that listed anywhere on that line item, which is why I was curious. So, so I appreciate the
We're-
insight.
Okay, we're trying. Okay,
Yes.
I recommend that we should focus our attention on the high level right now and not worry about the fine grained details. Reboot, go.
It's not a typo. You can't get a precise figure on a short order until you know exactly for whom you're ordering and what the design is. It's an estimate. It's a budget
Cool.
estimate.
If that's a budget estimate, that helps me understand that is not clear in the structure that I have. So I appreciate that explanation. Thank you.
Reboot, do you want to take it from there?
Sure. Yeah. So please notice that the top two sections are parking lot needs and lower loop needs. The most pressing of those is the parking lot section. DPW wants to start on that a week and a half from now. One thing that is notably missing from this, and we will need to add, is the cost of a Porto. That was a late realization that that's something we'll need. And essentially, we're talking about installing one Porto for a month. You're not muted, nonsense. One Porto for a month and having it serviced on a sane schedule. But DPW is, for the parking lot work, they've set out a pretty aggressive schedule of 3 weekends where skilled operators are going to go up and use heavy equipment and chainsaws and really move fast on the parking expansion. So there is one thing that I would consider optional in here. You see line 8 says additional saws and PPE, additional ads. If you're curious about that, you can go to tab 2. Originally, some of the PPE was listed as optional, and my position was no, PPE is not optional. So the only optional thing remaining, unless somebody wants to debate that, is a third saw. So the request currently, without that additional items line, is for 2 chainsaws. They would like to have a third to give them more flexibility in terms of how many teams can be operating and, presumably buffer against equipment failures and that sort of thing. The lower loop work that's just what we need to expand critical into the lower loop. That's just additional objects we need to obtain to extend critical. Beth.
So, and I mean, feel free to correct me on this because I know this is not my lane. Traditionally, we have had people bringing other tools with them, right? Like people have brought chainsaws and brought things from home. Are we just feeling like there's going to be so much work that they need to have extra chainsaws in addition to what people are bringing?
Yeah, that's part of it. This is a much larger project than our teams have undertaken ever, and that's a big part of it. It's we're talking about over the course of the next 5 years, 6 acres of tree clearing. It's a lot. So their position is let's start with new equipment that belongs to INW and can be INW's responsibility. And I think that's reasonable.
Thank you.
Just so I know where this sort of settles on the thing. So right now we're showing about, making 90 grand from critical. Should I read this as we're thinking of allocating an extra set of here in that budget that would cover the expansion? Is that the way to think?
In my mind, some of this is, so the budget that we set for critical definitely wasn't conscious of this being an expansion year. And also, so it's all one organization, one account at the end of the day, right? Like it's kind of up to us to figure out. It's interesting to me to see some people get fixated on that's event. That's definitely not event. The board needs to pay for this. Like, I do think that there are mental models worth building for ourselves, which is like, it's useful for all of us to sort of understand what a normal critical costs. And a lot of this DPW budget general is numbers that we would not have had a fine-grained conversation about in prior years, right? We would have just looked at this as like, hey, the event did the event budgeting process. These departments look proportional to what I imagine the scope is of each of the departments. And the board would have, had like high-level conversations and otherwise sent the budget mostly back with an approval as requested to the event. But I do see this stuff at the top as needing to exist outside of that. Like, this is just part of the event conversation so that we can kind of understand, because like a few interesting points, right? And I'm sure this has occurred to several people in the room, is that we're racking up assets, right? We're investing in developing property, which is going to be consuming volunteer time and not really building equity, right? Aside from to the extent that we stick with this property. And so that needs to all be strategy considerations in our head as we go into this. And we need to be thinking about organization, community, and the future of our event. So that's kind of, to me, that's why all of this is worth spending a little bit of time on. And we need to be comfortable with these bigger numbers. Like, we didn't budget for this and we need to put thought into this. And Giles, yeah, I think, by default, our mental model is it kind of gets subtracted out of the event profitability. Cool. But also to a point that someone made earlier today, critical is kind of what funds the ongoing operations of the organization. So
yeah, part of what I wanted to say there is if we decide not to run C compression, we planned on losing $26,000 in
Fair.
So we could reallocate it to expansion of, critical and call it done. And then one minor thing just to call out here, we allocated a lot more money for cable ramps, and I only see a much lower number here. So I don't know if that's a miss or a change. We allocated.
I can answer that because I already looked into that.
Okay, Zach, go ahead.
I have a few things. I'll get to cable ramps last. First of all, we did budget for this expansion. It was about $46,000 net that we expected to spend more this year. A lot of that was like per ticket, like extra costs for quarters and everything, but we can definitely include expanding the parking lot and things like that in that $46,000.
Great.
We did not actually plan for losing $26,000 on the budget. We said we were going to not do that and budget the actual income for C compression as the target budget, not aiming to lose another 26K. That said, there are less expenses here, like the ADA accessible cable things. we're a different supplier, Viver versus whatever the other one was, and they're like 1,200 here versus 3,000 that we already approved, and that already approval is like outside of this conversation. So we can subtract 3K from the 26K, and it's a pretty substantial chunk, right? So I guess all told, I think we did expect more costs, and they are in the budget. We're expecting to make more money too. We can talk about ticket price changes potentially, because some of the expected changes here were from inflation and some were from 25 or 20% growth, something like that. I think 20%. So all told, I think we can expect to pay for this expansion and also expect it to pay out over many years, because a lot of these are pretty long-term thinking things.
Great. Thanks for the data, Magic. Beth, Star, then Reboot.
I think, well, anyone that's been in any of these meetings in the last year and a half knows that I have been pushing for the growth of Critical personally as a participant, as being on the events committee, as the events committee co-chair. Like, I am very much in favor of doing what we need to do to be able to have more people attend Critical. And I think that I trust this DPW group to be putting through numbers that are realistic. I think they're going to be putting in a lot of blood, sweat, and tears on this, and I want to support them. And then thank you, Magic, that having the actual, like, some actual numbers and someone who's way better at budgeting than I am, kind of talking about what this actually looks like is great. So I am a huge fan of giving DPW what they need, and I don't think this is outside. I don't think this is an unrealistic scope of what they are trying to do. Minus the excavator, but we talked about that.
Reboot.
Yeah, I support what Magic and Beth said, and it's just a reminder, this work is for the purpose of inviting more people to Critical, right? So just the current estimate is that we will be clearing approximately 200 new parking spaces, which is a lot. And so that 200 parking spaces, in my view, supports at least 200 new tickets, and I would argue more, assuming everything else lines up. So assuming the demand is there, we could be looking at anywhere between, napkin math, 25 and 75,000 additional ticket revenue if we don't change those ticket prices, and relaxing parking pressure because that would exceed our current ratio of parking spots to tickets as well, which is a good thing.
Magic.
Yeah, I forgot one point I had, which was during the budget process, we had postponed extra grants that we wanted to do after Critical. I think it was about 28K. So this could potentially come from that, like, unaccounted money. And it also gives us the flexibility to pay for growth and then find out that we get more money from ticket prices or not. That's part of why we postponed about half of the grants this year. And we also wanted to have grant money for people to work on their art through winter. But I think this is coming. The opportunity cost is grant money basically for these expenditures, but also because of the growth, it might mean that we can get more grant money.
Jimmer.
Yeah, I wouldn't slow down any of that. I would, though, ask for a little digital assistance. Somebody else is probably looking at the bottom line of the cost. Again, if you could tell me the number. Sans the 50,000 for the excavator. What was the total ask on the budget? Because I wanted to balance that against the 46 days.
If you highlight the cells,
That's 22,421.
22,421. This is half of what we've already allocated. This is budgeted. I make a motion that we accept this budget as written.
Sans the excavator.
Sans the excavator.
we should probably also agree on the third chainsaw.
What is that? $500 in there?
I think it was closer to 1,200.
1,200. It's still well within the bounds of what Magic has reported as pre-allocated funds for this particular project, which you've just given us a budget for. So I see zero resistance here.
I second.
We can go ahead with the vote. To clarify, though, that 46K was also including extra golf carts and extra porta potties and several expenses that we've already identified as coming with a larger event that covers more space. So
Fair enough. And that number was 23,000 on this budget. Is that right? Budget Magic. What was that number again, please?
46,000 for all of criticals, increase in cost.
The other column, the distributed budget. Sans
22,421
22,421
plus maybe 1,200 for a chainsaw. I'm not saying
plus 1,200. Give or take a couple of bones. What is that? 29,000.
yeah, so the
Sorry, it's 23,000. Sorry.
so the motion is
Point of clarification.
to
I
what?
would be comfortable including that. Yeah.
The extra chainsaw is on line 8. So if you're just summing columns, it's already in there.
Okay. So, sans the excavator, I move that we accept the budget as written.
second.
All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay.
Aye.
All right.
Cheers.
The ayes have it.
I think
Now we
should
don't
still
get-
discuss the excavator.
Yeah, we don't get to get out of here without discussing the excavator because one way or another, we need an excavator in a week and a half. Not necessarily one that we own. But the alternatives, Reboot, do you have details on the alternatives? I think not owning one means we're going to be renting one, and I think we have a sense what that costs.
We do. Although late breaking information is that the cost from I think it was United Rentals increased because of some unexpected line item. I forgot what it was, but so it's something like $3,000 a weekend. And just as a reminder, this is phase 1 of a planned 5-year expansion. So we're going to need this heavy equipment for the next 5 years if we continue on this path. So the options include rent from a reputable rental company, buy an excavator and own that. So another option is Dookie is actually willing to be the owner of an excavator and participate in an above board bidding process wherein he may be the winning bidder on renting an excavator. And one reason that might make sense for everyone is we might decide, we and the Masons might elect to allow him to store his excavator on site for the part of the year that it's needed and thereby save a lot in transportation fees. So he could actually come in with a competitive bid that is, it would be a win-win.
Thoughts on that? Yeah, I mean, I don't see any fundamental problems with renting from Dookie. I would definitely want to see us put thought into what we want that process to look like, just to make sure that we're not renting subsidizing an excavator for our friend, and instead are separating. Dookie wants to own an excavator and is willing to sink capital into owning an excavator, and separate that from Ignition needs occasional use of an excavator, and having that question get answered.
Simon, you've got hands up.
I see that now. Meckham, then Magic, then Jimmer.
Hey everybody, Meckham here. Just wanted to chime in with my half a brain cell to help Reboot out there. The additional line item portion of the quote from United Rentals is because they have added a fee if you go over a certain number of equipment operating hours. So all those engines have an hour timer on them, and they have picked a number that sounded low to folks at DPW on their expected use. So there's that added expected cost on top of the rental and delivery fees.
Thanks, Meckham. Magic.
I'm not surprised to hear that DPW works harder than expect people to. Yeah. So the way I would frame this decision between buy an excavator INW owns, Dookie buys an excavator, rents to us, or we just continue to rent from United Rentals or whomever, is understanding that like 5 to 7 year timeline rental cost for, and that was just 2 to 3K for a weekend, I think you said. So we're trying to go for a month for the parking lot and clearing, more than a month. And also we should, for the Dookie versus we owning it, we should understand what the maintenance costs are that he's expecting and maybe have like a 5 to 7 year contract instead of just trying to rent it per session, so that we can normalize what costs outlay we're expecting in a long term. I think it would make sense to have a longer term contract with Dookie if he wants to own it. That still gets us, like, guarantees us access to an excavator, and he can manage all the rental stuff. But making a three-way comparison of total cost of ownership versus Dookie basically covering that total cost of ownership versus United Rental doing the same.
Jimmer, and then Reboot.
With respect, there is definitely an elephant in the room to discuss. That is the conflict of interest based on Dookie being so wedded to our organization for so long time. It is particularly unusual to offer a 3 to 5 year contract to anyone as far as this organization goes like that, other than like volunteer board hours. I would be concerned about that. I know that we talked about this conversation in preparation of this meeting, and I brought up the idea that I'm not particularly opposed to this, but I would like to keep it on a more of a reserved participatory interaction. If we are in a long-term contract, we are then beholden to that. Yes, he's been a long-standing person, obviously. It's just in that same zone. It is already a win-win. Where am I trying to go with this? Is I would like to move slowly with this. I don't think it's a small juncture to consider, and I think it's fine to allocate the rental that is standard using a couple of others, because he is sort of well known to us. Perhaps he could offer the standard 501c3 discount that's normative for folks, in light of the fact that this is obviously a possible long-term contract for him.
Let's see, and Reboot, then Beth Star.
Yeah, so my summary did include that the idea that competitive bids would be baked in, and I agree that that's the way we would resolve that conflict of interest, is to make sure that we were making a wise financial decision. I really like Magic's idea of bundling it into a contract, and similarly, I think we could definitely reach out to rental agencies and ask them if they wanted to bid on that and give them the opportunity to compete on that.
Totally. Beth Star.
Yeah, I'm sort of backing what Reboot said. Conflict of interest in and of itself, as we just talked about at the onboarding, right, isn't necessarily a problem. It just have to make sure that we are realizing that maybe there is a conflict of interest and addressing it. So that doesn't necessarily stress me out about the idea. I still think it's a good idea, and I think that conflict of interest is pretty easily resolved.
Magic, then Meckham.
I would also add that maintenance is non-trivial for equipment like that, and we'd be contracting someone to maintain this anyways, or maybe messing it up ourselves. So would like take the windfall of someone else providing that like guaranteed access.
Meckham.
Just wanted to nudge the board's attention toward what I heard is there is a time-sensitive decision, and that is whether the board is going to make this capital expenditure or continue renting on a time basis of a week and a half from now. There needs to be an excavator, and that the other nudge is that the decision about who wins the rental contract probably doesn't need to be settled tonight, but the first one does.
Jimmer, then Magic.
I wouldn't slow down the idea of getting access to heavy machinery. What I would slow down is the conversation about a 3 to 5 year contract and the parameters thereof.
Magic.
The contract I was proposing was not like us guaranteeing that Dookie win the bid. It was us having the right to rent the excavator that's stored at the Mason's place. So it doesn't like compel us to rent. On the other hand, us having a contract with Dookie for a longer term to like have him expect business is something he can use on any financing application because it's like likely income. I'm not saying we're guaranteeing income, but it does like go a long way with the bank when you already have a customer for the thing you're trying to like buy.
I thought I heard a hand, but I don't see a hand. All right. So I mean, I think by default our answer here, maybe we should establish this as policy, but I think by default our answer here, well, we should approve an excavator for 10 days from now, I guess. I guess that is important because we did not approve that as part of the rest of the budget. And then we should figure out what our approach is to resolving the rest of our approach. So reboot.
Not to complicate it, but it is in the realm of possibility that Dookie could acquire an excavator in the next 10 days. It is also not guaranteed. So we should try to be flexible with, or not, right? But we could be flexible with how we phrase that in terms of from whom we rent.
I mean, I personally would be okay if we have here's the cost to go rent it from United Rental or whoever does, and Dookie wanted to meet that bid. I think for this one-off time, that would be fine to me, right? Like we can sort out long-term relationship, but if he shows us a reasonable bid from another vendor and matches it, that seems like that would be fine.
Magic.
If Dookie is interested in either him owning or INW owning an excavator, maybe we can just empower the president and treasurer to like assist that conversation.
Well, I don't think we're going to buy an excavator from this discussion. Or so, I mean, we might rent. We either in 10 days need to have rented one, and the vendor that we rent it from, I don't think we care. We should just approve that we're going to rent one for this first weekend.
Yeah, and what? Yeah, what was the expected cost? Was it 3,000? Yeah, so we could just approve rental of an excavator. We should be explicit that we've discussed and are okay with renting it from Dookie if Dookie ends up owning an excavator between now and then. And we'll continue the conversation on getting to well, unless somebody has something clever to say in terms of, I guess, how we want to structure our approach to that. But I would move that we approve the rental of an excavator consistent with that $3,000 bid. Hey, beep, beep.
Beep, beep.
No beep, beep.
I wonder if what Beep Beep is about to say is that there are actually going to be 2 work weekends before the next board meeting. And so we should probably approve at least 2 of those. If not the whole bundle for the 3 weekends needed.
Use the whole bundle for how many weekends?
The 3 weekends
3.
that we're engaged in this year. In fact, I move that we approve a budget of as much as $3,000 per weekend for a rented excavator for the next 3 DPW work weekends.
Did you see Beep Beep's note?
That's half
Rental
an
is
excavator. Yeah.
5,300 for one weekend. Are we acting on obsolete intel?
Maybe. I'll check.
Just a time check. We're at the meeting end.
With these prices, buying an excavator sounds worth it.
It does.
Second opinion. Wait, I want the first opinion.
Stand by.
Well, apparently, I move that we
So-
don't rent one from Eric. No, I'm kidding, of course.
Okay, so yeah, I'm confirming that the original estimate that Eric got, I believe, from United Rentals was between 2,300 and 3,500 per weekend, depending on how many days in the weekend. So if we're going to have 1 3-day weekend and 2 2-day weekends. So 35 plus 23 plus 23 would be the United Rentals. Whatever commercial provider he got it from, I'm not seeing it in my scan. But that was the estimate before the price went up. So if it went up to 5,300, that's tremendous.
In a reconsiderable way.
How realistic is the $50,000 for the excavator that we're renting for $15,000 for a month? So I guess let me change tact a little there with that. I think that we need excavators for upcoming weekends. I think we probably want to make a smart financial decision and not pay $15,000 a month for excavators.
It sounds like Meckham's got access to 3,000. Is that real, Meckham? What were you assessing in that context?
I was saying that was based upon the hours, which are an additional charge that has not been present on the rental equipment before.
Okay, so the quote that you've got is one that seems sound to work from, rather than what Eric has just provided.
It's not 3,000 total. That wasn't the total quote. I think that was additional. But again, I was in the same call that Reboot was in, where DPW was relaying this very recent development.
Yeah, so to reiterate, let's believe Beep Beep's number. I assume that's for a 3-day weekend, Beep Beep, but still, it's a huge number. And it's not like that's a different competing bid. That's the no wait, here's our additional fees number.
Can we approve the first weekend and make a special meeting for further discussion of options?
That sounds right to me. And I would even add if the other Eric, if Dookie can pull together a quote that's substantially under United for the first weekend, I think I'm still totally comfortable with him having that contract.
I would open a solicitation of a quote for the lead up to critical for all prep.
Yeah, that substantial discount would fit in with my goal parameters to give up the idea that it would look like heavy imbalance.
Magic, do you want to structure that resolution?
I move that we approve $5,300 plus or minus 10% for the nearest work weekend, and also have a special meeting in early April for further budget discussions.
Okay. Is there a second?
Seconded.
All in favor of approving 5,300 for plus or minus 10% for weekend number 1, and a special meeting to keep working on our options here in early April, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. All right. Motion carries. Yeah, we are right at time for the meeting. We still have a handful of things worth discussing. If people got to go and we lose quorum, that's okay. If people can hang out and we can maintain a quorum, let's try to do these rapid fire. I don't think any of the remaining items are going to require this kind of discussion.
I have a flight to catch tonight and
Okay.
have maybe 10 minutes more secretary time.
Okay, we will set a hard drop then. I move to adjourn at 8:45.
Seconded.
Second, yeah.
Without objection. Okay, we've got our goal, folks. Burning Man Project Town Hall, Jimmer, go.
Hey, how you doing there? I'm getting mad. I'm making art in the dark. Making art in the dark, mad ratcha. Feeling good about it because we got the Grand Jackrabbit, Andy Grace, Action Girl coming at us with her fuck yeah friend. She gonna be her to give us a future salon. So they're opening up for 2 minutes, two for presenters. I've got a couple of people lined up already to give a little hot spot for who they are, and their desk is over there with flyers and smiles. Please, your friends too for major projects such as mutant vehicles, art projects, theme camps, local communications from us. We need to get a person and a shorty agenda just to give like a not agenda, but more of a statement of our space. Some people do a state of the nation. We can do the state of the community. To that effect, it'll be 2 p.m. Open the doors at April 26th at Youngstown. And yeah, they're on a national tour. I just spoke to Annie Grace in Arizona today. Feeling pretty good about that. So, you know, yeah, do you have any questions?
Beth, Star, your hands up.
It is up. Jimmer, I just wanted to circle back, and you checked in with Seth. How's Anima with Seth, right? Because he was thinking about they wanted to do a theme camp presentation.
I forget he's with House Anima. I always think of him as Fremont Arts Council, but yeah, we're on board.
Fantastic. So you're just letting us know, just to make sure I'm understanding, you're letting us know that this is a thing that is happening. And if anybody on the board is looking to present, there is space available, but you're not making a specific ask that the board do something specific, correct?
There is a specific ask. We need to sort of give a state of the community, like a comment on updates, just sort of an annual hello of this is what's happening, full stop.
And that's the thing that has to come from the board or from anyone?
Yeah, it can be anyone. I mean, I'll be there speaking if it can, you know, or it could be from Feynman or yes, it's us. We're INW. We're hosting the Burning Man org, and there will be space for us to comment on how we're doing this year as an update to the community who will be seated in the space that is there.
All right. I think we can work on that asynchronously in Slack.
Agreed.
Sweet. Anything else? We're down to 7 minutes.
Well, I think I had 2 more points listed, didn't I? What was the other one?
We have 7 minutes for 5 more topics.
Yeah.
Yes, I had 3. The possibility of still doing a newbie picnic is on the table. We just don't have a nail in what would be the best time because May is complex. We did isolate the 3rd last time, then Leeds retreat bumped into that, and so did the thing that I just talked about coming from San Francisco. So the gas is not on as heavy to the picnic, but there is momentum. So I would like to hear from people that are interested in participating in the newbie picnic. I would like some energy on input for timing because it has become complex beyond measure. So please reach out for thoughts. speak to me directly.
Board review nonsense. Board review of sitting conduct committee members. We've got 6 minutes left in the meeting.
So the basics here are we gave, oh, sorry, there's some activity going on over here. We gave you guys some data about our participation on the conduct committee. The 3 members of the conduct committee that are on the board were not originally chosen. We weren't vetted by the community originally. We went through community vetting with the new members of the conduct committee on this occasion. We gave you guys that data. I'm kind of looking for more than like individual responses being like, that's fine. I'm looking for the board to provide a process. It could be very simple. It could be whatever you guys want that excludes Megaphone, Feynman, and myself. And in order to say, we accept these results and y'all are approved to continue doing this work. That could be a motion. It could be something else. Magic, go ahead.
I move to empower the conduct committee to accept the candidates they need to function.
Seconded.
All in favor, say aye.
I
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The ayes have it.
Okay, my 2 topics are informational in things. There's a new events finance control policy that we are socializing around, basically to formalize how we're going to run event finances. So take a look at that when you have a chance and comment in document. Similarly, the grants committee has developed the framework for its educational grants program, and we are looking for comments on there as well. It does not specifically have all of the administration bit. It is just the framework to run it. I don't think I need votes on either one of these currently from the board, but take a look at those and comment. Go for it, Magic.
I would give a brief overview of the financial control one, and I haven't reviewed the grants one carefully, but the core theme of the financial controls is that there should be 2 people involved minimum for each transaction. There should be someone who's making the transaction and someone who's approving it. There can be different people under fulfilling those roles. No one should be writing themselves any checks. And there's a bunch of details in there about the process and how to do things, just like to set people up for success, all of the roles. And there's carve outs for exceptions. So we have flexibility when things don't go quite right. I don't know if we need board approval to make this document be policy, but I'd be happy to propose that if we feel we do.
I don't have strong feelings there. Shall we adopt it just because we can?
Do people feel like they have had a chance to look at it and to adopt it, or do they? I was making it.
You know what? I think the right. I changed my mind. I think the right way to think about this is that this is sort of a negotiation between treasurer and event, and the board has seen the document and can provide feedback if the board feels like it needs to.
Reboot. Do you have feedback under your producer hat?
I did provide some feedback on the initial revision, and I have not carefully studied it now that it's been edited, but I will do that at least.
Thanks.
Jimmer.
Yeah, I also had a few notes basically on structuring, having to do with parallel grammar and punctuation for just general shape. But I don't have any opinions around how the content otherwise is, other than one specific spot where you said a minimum or a maximum of, and I felt like maybe the opposite was intended. And it was a $25,000 minimum listed. Was that to be minimum versus maximum? That would be a point of curiosity specifically around, was this annotated correctly? But I have no opinion generally.
Yeah, it was a minimum because that was a promise to the producers that they would have at least 25K of working capital in their bank account.
So they know
Is
they're
that like
going to
this?
get paid.
So they won't bounce.
Yeah.
Basically, that's if they're writing less than 25,000, they're not going to bounce a check.
Mhm.
That's the.
Okay.
It remains.
That anxious. Thank you. Mhm.
I wanted to talk about Safety Northwest.
Yep. Let's talk Safety Northwest real quick.
Real
60
quick.
seconds.
Real quick, I reviewed the document and I am good with it.
Great. Safety Northwest. Here's the short version. There may be others in the room more qualified to speak on this. Safety Northwest needs help from viewers like you in order to do the thing this year. And they have casually wondered, although we're not convinced they've explicitly asked us, they've casually wondered within earshot of us if there may be sources of sponsorship. Is any of that characterization wrong? Beth Star, your hand is up.
I think I would like clarity since we have everybody in the room. Has anybody gotten a specific ask from Safety Northwest about to INW? Hey, we need help and we would like this much this kind of help and in this quantity.
I solicited a specific ask.
I saw an email that mentioned 2,500, but I don't know if I could find it.
But that wasn't an ask to us. That was just an explanation of what they're short on.
Yes.
There was an ask that was broadcast to
It was
everyone that said,
right.
INW et al., could you help us? So
Yes, but no.
technically, yes.
Okay. So I am
We
totally
need to get
down.
Magic. We need to get Magic on the road to the airport. Beth Star, go ahead.
I am down. I say yes. I would like to help them with money. I don't know that I don't know about $2,500 because that seems like the whole thing they need. But I'm pro giving money for Safety Northwest this year, and also opening the conversation to what if we collaborate on this thing moving forward.
Jimmer, got to go fast. Then Magic, then Giles.
Was gonna put out. How about we offer to say 1,250 and as our budget for when they come and eventually ask.
To riff on that, I was going to direct them towards the education grant program that we just put together there and suggest they apply.
Remarkably sound. point.
Magic, then Giles.
Yeah. Second, Giles' proposal. Also, I wanted to highlight Tuck's comment in the chat about Rangers looking for some budget to drive there, which is a 5-hour drive. I think that was budgeted last year as well.
If
So I
it's
think it
already
might already be in the
budgeted, it's already
yeah.
line item budgeted.
We're going to
It
have a
wasn't
special
budgeted.
meeting in early April. Do we want to
Is
resolve?
it already included in their Ranger budget?
I don't think it was in the Ranger budget. It was in, we budgeted it generally, I think. Or approved it generally.
It's a travel budget, I think.
Yeah.
Bringing up Rangers right
Yeah.
now is eating into the hard time of -3 minutes. Can we talk about the idea that we do have a what is it, a grants system? I would like to formally approve, 1,250 or 1,500. Who would like to choose 1,250 to?
I think we can leave that up to the grants committee probably, and just direct them to the grants committee.
Through the grants committee.
Send them in. Yeah, let's
I would
invite
definitely
them.
encourage the grants committee to help Safety Northwest, having attended
We have-
and it being a good event.
We have
for everybody.
literally just received an email on this. Whoever is back channeling a text message to the team, air high five right at you. We just got a board from them.
Okay, I'll take responding to that to tell them about the education program and get them on there.
Cool.
All right. And travel reimbursements, yeah, we'll pick up at the April special meeting to be scheduled. I'll follow up with y'all in Slack to pick a date and time. All right. I think that's all we have time for.
Move to adjourn.
Rock and roll. Glad you could make it,
Again.
Beep. You
Second.
just made us some money.
That objection.
Excavator.
All right. See y'all later.
Peace.
Bye, friends.
You're neat.